Hey friends, to guard this lighthouse, you will be paid about 15 crores per year, along with endless facilities. Like there will be no boss here. You will be able to sleep completely alone. You can fish and do whatever you want. Your only job will be to see that the light of this lighthouse is working properly. If the light ever goes out, you will have to turn it back on immediately. That's all you have to do. You can sleep with your feet up all day, and at the end of the month, you will count crores of money. You must be very eager to get this job, but before applying, you should know that despite all these facilities, this is the most dangerous job in the world, because this lighthouse is located right in the middle of the ocean. You will not be able to communicate with anyone. Loneliness will always surround you. The most dangerous thing is that there are often big storms here. The storms are so terrible that sometimes the seawater overflows over the tower, which can lead to death in this work. What other dangers lie ahead, you will know later. But the real question is, why this lighthouse was built in the middle of the sea? What is its function? And why is it necessary to always keep an eye on this lighthouse? And why can its light never be turned off? To know the origin of these mysterious lighthouses, you have to go back to history. In that history, where there were no cars or vehicles for long journeys, the only way to travel long distances was by water. During that period, an extraordinary sailor named Captain Marius was quite famous for travelling the sea even in adverse conditions. Once, he was passing through a place in the middle of the sea with his ship in the darkness. Just then, the ship hit a large stone at the bottom. At that time, ships were made of wood. Due to this, the bottom of the ship easily cracked and water entered, causing considerable damage. But in time, Captain Marius and his companions were able to repair the ship, thus saving their lives. After this accident, Captain Marius started looking for a solution. He wanted to create something through which the sailors of the ship could be warned in advance of these dangers. But the cause of great concern here is the vastness of the Pacific Ocean, because the Pacific Ocean is so large and vast that if the entire land of the 7 continents were put together, the Pacific Ocean would still be larger. Thousands of years ago, when sailors used to travel across this vast sea, they had no idea about anything under the sea. Even if they had no idea about the road, there was no technology to help them find their way. Basically, at that time, sailors had to rely on the sun, moon, or stars to navigate the sea. And this problem of guidance caused many problems, as happened to Captain Ellis. Once, Captain Ellis and his sailors crossed the Pacific Ocean. One night, a storm suddenly started. The sky was covered with dark clouds. Naturally, all the stars in the sky were covered under the clouds. Due to this, they lost their way in the storm. When morning came, they found themselves lost in the vast ocean. They had nothing to eat, not even water to drink. The situation of the sailors became very bad. They were thirsty even in the vast waters of the ocean. As a result, many sailors died. He died after a long time. With great difficulty, Captain Thera saw the shore, and then the journey of building the lighthouse began. Alexandria was on the Mediterranean Sea in Egypt. At that time, the ruler there was Ptolemy II, Philadelphia. But the biggest problem for this state at that time was their location. If you look at this picture carefully, you will understand that they had to travel through this narrow path to enter the city. and there were many big stones around this place, as a result of which, whenever the ships that came to trade in this city crossed this road, the ships would easily hit the stones, and as a result, sometimes these ships would sink or suffer major damage. Therefore, the state began to lag behind economically due to the decrease in the number of commercial ships in this state day by day. Ptolemy then protected his state. To do this, he went to the most famous architect of that time, Sostras of Cnidos. He prayed to him for relief from this problem. The two of them thought together and came up with an idea. The idea was that they would build a fortress on the sea, on which the light rays would guide the ships in the sea. Sostras started working according to that plan, but at that time he could not imagine that what he was going to do would one day become one of the most famous creations in the world, which will become the Lighthouse of Alexandria in the whole world. The height of this house of Alexandria was 384 feet. It was made entirely of white marble. At that time, a fire was constantly kept burning on the top of this lighthouse, for which oil and wood had to be constantly supplied to this lighthouse. Even this lighthouse was later recognized as one of the seventh wonders of the world. It was not only famous for its height, but also for its extraordinary design. At that time, Sosartus created a design with mirrors or lenses to spread the rays or intensity of light, so that the light of this lighthouse could show the way to the sailors of ships far away. When the news of the construction of this lighthouse spread, the sailors breathed a sigh of relief, because now they would no longer have to make mistakes on their way to Alexandria. Even ships cannot be damaged by rocks, and this is how the idea of a lighthouse spread throughout the world. Although initially lighthouses were only used to warn ships in the sea, as the number of commercial ships increased, lighthouses were also built in places where the rocks were close to the water level or where there were many rocks that could easily hit ships. At that time, lighthouses began to be built. Although initially lighthouses always had to be lit, which, considering all aspects, was not a good idea, because coal or firewood had to be constantly supplied. At that time, there was no other way to light a lighthouse. Later, candles or lamps were used, but the light from the fire could not travel very far. Then, electric bulbs were invented in lighthouses. Instead of fire, electric bulbs were used, but even then the light could not travel very far. The reason was that lenses were placed behind the bulbs. Scientists soon discovered that if electric bulbs were placed in front of the lenses, the light could travel much farther. Scientists soon realized that lenses also had problems, because the lenses of that time were very thick. At that time, a French scientist named Augustin Jean Fresnel invented a special type of lens. In this special lens, all the light that came through it went straight to a single point, which made it possible to easily focus the light of the electric bulb on a specific point. These lenses are called Fresnel lenses. Nowadays, almost all lighthouses use Fresnel lenses. This discovery gave the lighthouse a new look, which is why ships can still navigate safely on the seabed. Those who guard this lighthouse, they do their work silently in solitude, just like the ghost of the Amazon snake. Whoever works in the lighthouse located on the island dies from snake bites. Now this lighthouse is empty of people, but who is looking after that lighthouse? There are many lighthouse stories that will give you the courage to spend even a night in the lighthouse. No, and this is why no normal person, even after paying so much, they do not want to stay in these lonely lighthouses. because no one ever wants to lose themselves in this terrible and solitude video.